Welcome to AETCM, the Emergency Medicine channel. Today we'll be discussing a case of pregnancy who walked up to our ER with complaints of nausea and vomiting. Can we begin, sir?
Yes.
A 26-year-old woman presented to our ER in early pregnancy with complaints of nausea with vomiting since about 2 to 3 days. Our initial 10-second assessment, since the patient was talking, conscious, obeying commands, we quickly moved on to the primary survey, wherein airway was patent as there was no pooling of secretions or presence of any vomitus in and around the oral cavity. Breathing wise, patient had a respiratory rate of 25 cycles per minute, maintaining saturation of 98% in room air, with air entry being bilaterally equal with adequate and symmetrical chest rise with adequate chest excursions. There was no added sounds, there was no obvious signs of respiratory distress that was noted. Circulation wise, patient had a heart rate of 96 beats per minute, maintaining blood pressure of 130 over 80 mm mercury with MAP of 95 mm mercury. All peripheral pulses were palpable with regular rhythm. Disability wise, patient had a full GCS score E4 V5 M6 totaling up to 15 over 15 with pupils being 2.5 millimeters bilaterally and symmetrically reactive to light. Exposure wise, patient had temperature of 98.7 degree Fahrenheit with blood sugars of 101 milligram per deciliter and she was covered to prevent hypothermia. Now in our adjunct to primary survey, we needed to know her metabolic status, so we went ahead with ABG, which showed us metabolic alkalosis with pH being 7.47, PCO2 being 45.3 and bicarbonate being 27.8. Potassium levels were a little on a lower scale, 3.3, and sodium was 131 while chloride was 98. Hemoglobin wise, she had 10.4 milligram per deciliter, lactate was about 2.4 with normal creatinine. ECG wise, patient had a normal sinus rhythm. So moving on to a secondary survey.
We'll wait there. So this is a patient with multiple episodes of vomiting, right? What are the usual things you are going to expect in your initial survey?
With nausea and vomiting, we'll have to first rule out dehydration, sir. Once dehydration is ruled out, we'll have to see the metabolic status of the patient. The patient has metabolic alkalosis because H plus is lost, plus with that potassium, if it loses, patient will also end up in hypokalemia. If the patient is dehydrated or in hypovolemic state, lactate levels can also go up. So these would be the findings.
For the sensorium, if sensorium is low, we have to anticipate aspiration. First, in airway part and breathing, we have to rule out it. Then in circulation, as she told, dehydration, if hypovolemia is there, hypotension, tachycardia, all the symptoms. And disability, as told, like sensorium, we have to assess. And GRBS also we have to check because the intake will be less. So chance of hypoglycemia should be ruled out. And exposure part, like any fever or associated symptoms.
Urine output.
Urine output.
Along with hypokalemia, there may be chances patient may go for hypomagnesemia also. Okay. And dehydration features anything?
This patient did not have, so she did not have tachycardia. Her heart rate was around 96. She had pretty good urine output also. So blood pressure was fine.
Hyperventilation, not only nausea and vomiting, even the rate of respiration also will be a cause for the dehydration.
Moving on to a secondary survey, so signs and symptom wise, patient had nausea, vomiting history since about 2 to 3 days with the dry heaves, like retching was also there about 2 to 3 times, and fatigue associated with generalized weakness were her symptoms that she presented with. Allergy history, she didn't have any. Medication wise, she was on regular calcium, folic acid and iron supplements, which is given for a regular patient, pregnant patient. 10 weeks, sir. 10 weeks, 2 days of gestational age.
Duration of nausea, vomiting 3 days.
From 2 to 3 days.
How many times a day?
Roughly on an average of 3 to 4 days, sir. 3 to 4 times per day.
Per day, okay.
Past history, she did not have any previous significant past history as such, and this was her first pregnancy. Last meal, since she was repulsed towards eating food, she was on very small biscuit, solid diet, that's about it. And event wise, she was a primary gravida in her 10 weeks, 2 days of gestational age, who presented with complaints of nausea, vomiting, roughly about 3 to 4 times per day, lasting for 2 to 3 days.
What is the food habit she is adapting to because of the nausea and vomiting? Is she taking food or totally deprived?
She would try and take small frequent meals, but she was not very compliant with, like she had refusal to eat
Okay.
features and all. Now, in menstrual history wise, patient had her last periods on 5th of April 2020, LMP being 5th April, and EDD was expected to be 12th of Jan 2022. And obstetric history wise, she was married for 2 years in a non-consanguineous marriage. This was her first pregnancy, and so far the last 10 weeks have been pretty much uneventful. Her personal details: she had a weight of 65 kg currently, with a height of 165 centimeters, with BMI calculating up to 23. Examination wise, this female was conscious and oriented
Was
to
there
time
any
place.
weight reduction when compared to this one? This is also one
no.
of factor. More than 5% of the weight, total body
Body
weight may
weight.
be reduced. Okay.
Examination wise, she was conscious, oriented to time, place and person. There was mild pallor present, but no icterus or pedal edema noted. Head to toe examination and systemic examination was pretty
Pallor,
much
you
within normal
mean
limits.
anemia or
So,
pallor?
Pallor.
You mean anemia or?
mild pallor was there, sir.
Okay.
Had a hemoglobin of 10.4.
Ah, okay.
With this, sir, we calculated the scoring system called as Modified Pregnancy Unique Quantification of MSS. It's a scoring system we use in order to figure out the severity of a patient. So this basically comprises of 3 main questions, wherein you ask the patient how long the symptoms have lasted, the nausea or vomiting, for how long, the duration of nausea or vomiting, how many times she has vomited in a day, like with food particles. The other one would be dry heaves, just the retching, how many times in a day. Each one comes up to be like 5, 5, 5, totaling up to 15. This patient fell in moderate grade. That is, up until 6th, you have mild. From 7 to 12, it will be moderate, and more than 13, it will be severe. So she had that score of about 8, so which meant that her nausea vomiting severity was about 8, moderate. So with this in mind, we suspected hyperemesis gravidarum. So although there is no definitive diagnostic criteria for this, but they say that persistent vomiting, that is roughly around 3 times per day, associated with more than 5% of weight reduction in the pre-pregnant body weight, along with ketonuria, is said to be hyperemesis gravidarum. So we went ahead with laboratory examination. Now, laboratory investigation wise, she had mildly deranged liver enzymes, with SGOT being 57.8, SGPT being 43.6. Otherwise, her other lab investigations were normal. We even did a USG in order to rule out any hydatidiform mole or ectopic pregnancy, if any. And with this, we sent for urine ketones to check for the status of dehydration, and that came out to be positive. So with this, our first line of treatment was fluid resuscitation. So we started her on 1 pint RL. Ringer lactate was started.
What is
and
the glucose level?
Glucose level was 101 milligram per deciliter. So with this, we started her on fluid resuscitation. So with 1 pint RL was ongoing. Then in anticipation for vitamin B1 deficiency, like that could lead up to wernicke's encephalopathy, considering how she was persistently vomiting, thiamine was also administered to this patient. And then in order to prevent her further symptoms of nausea, vomiting, H1 blocker was given, along with the dopamine antagonist like metoclopramide was also given for increasing gastric motility and to prevent as an antiemetic measure.
So suppose the patient is hypoglycemic. So what type of fluid will you opt for, and what precaution will you take?
If she is hypoglycemic, then first thiamine correction has to be started, and then
Is she dead
dextrose
by
has to be given.
dextrose?
Sir.
Okay, always pressure.
So after thiamine, we'll give her or dextrose.
Now, what
either
will happen? Always, if you are not preceding the thiamine injection, what will happen to the patient?
that can further worsen the glucose.
It may precipitate Wernicke's encephalopathy.
Wernicke's
Okay,
encephalopathy.
good.
So the ideal choice of fluid is?
Either isotonic crystalloids, or either NS or RL. In this
One thing
patient,
you could have corrected upfront is in this patient along with the NS. So potassium.
Potassium
Potassium.
correction. 20 milliequivalents were given, so
Yeah.
was added to
So
it.
ideally here it be NS that is 0.9% normal saline along with
20.
potassium correction.
Potassium correction. That was started with 20 milliequivalents. KCL was given, sir.
What are the drugs did you use?
For her, we gave pantoprazole.
Pantoprazole.
Pantoprazole was given. Then metoclopramide 10 mg was also given, along with fluid resuscitation and thiamine. These were the main modes of measurements we went ahead
What is
with.
the role of ondansetron?
Ondansetron and hyperemesis gravidarum, we generally wouldn't be the first line of treatment, sir. We try with antihistamines first and then according to what.
Role of pyridoxine.
Sorry, sir?
Pyridoxine.
Yeah, pyridoxine patient with hyperemesis gravidarum are prone to have vitamin B6 deficiency, and pyridoxine in combination with doxylamine succinate can be used.
Okay, not available here. Doxylamine. Available?
Available, sir.
Good. Okay.
And
See, ondansetron certain times in patients with hyperkalemia, they may precipitate
QTC prolongation.
withdrawal. Okay. Yeah. Prolongation.
So these were, so we corrected hypovolemia, we sent for urine ketones that came back to be negative. So, so since she did not have any previous persistent serious complication and did not fit into the admission in the hospital criteria, we just symptomatically managed her. The admission criteria would be if the diagnosis is unknown, like hyperemesis gravidarum can have differential diagnosis, like the patient can have hydatiform mole or ectopic pregnancy or pancreatitis, gastroenteritis, cholecystitis. Once all this is ruled out, if at all no definitive diagnosis is reached, or if the patient has irretractable vomiting, or if severe weight loss is there, more than 10% of the pre-pregnant weight, then these would be the criteria for admission. Since she didn't fall into any of these criteria, we symptomatically managed her and regularly checked her fluid status, with urine output being more than 100 ml per hour.
Here the patient
Karen, sir, no?
here the patient responded to your initial first line of treatment. Right?
Yes, sir.
Let us assume that the patient remains refractory to your first line. How will you proceed? Then the challenges are going to be, one is going to be your feeding, next is going to be your electrolyte changes, and further measures other than your regular ondansetron or Berinam for your antiemetics.
Fluid resuscitation can be tried again, sir. If at all patient is not compliant to it, then parenteral feeding can be thought of, like either through RT tube or basically
Enteral
NG tube can be,
feeding.
enteral feeding can be an option available if the patient is just not tolerating fluids. Then as and when patient is tolerating, we can start with first cold solid foods in small frequent amounts, and then we can upgrade the amount of food. This would be the feeding user. And then since the patient has persistent vomiting, antiemetics has to be given. If first line antihistamines does not work,
antiemetic, you be precise which antiemetic you want to choose. Some of the antiemetics are teratogenic. So especially within the first 10 weeks, there are certain drugs to be completely contraindicated and avoided.
so like diphenhydramine can be used, meclizine can be used for these patients. Otherwise, dopamine antagonists like metoclopramide can be used. Then if these two don't work, then ondansetron can also be added. First, if there's no ECG, if we take and rule out any QTC prolongation, we can go ahead with even ondansetron also, sir, in this. The role of steroids is not very established, but it is still under trials for this. And since the patient can have multiple electrolyte abnormalities like hypokalemia, hypomagnesia, hypocalcemia, this has to be closely monitored and corrected as and when patient has depleted levels in the body.
So in the history taking, you have to take history regarding the GERD. Even before
GERD.
pregnancy, any GERD or acid peptic disease, these are all already existing. We have to tackle these also. Okay, apart from the management of the hyperemesis gravidarum.
Gravidarum.
Okay.
That's about it, so. And if the patient has just mild symptoms, then dietary changes can be advised to this patient about taking small frequent meals, about certain type of food that needs to be avoided, like caffeinated or high fatty food, spicy food. This has to be best avoided. If the nausea feeling is a little too bothersome, then ginger containing food can also be advised to this patient. But if the symptoms are severe, then hospital admission should be advocated, and close monitoring of the patient's fluid status has to be done along with urine output.
Definitely, since you mentioned that there is definitely some role for steroids also. Okay, if it is remaining refractory, then you can try with
Try.
metronidazole. And the usual regime followed is you give it for close to 2 to 3 days. If it is responding, to taper over the course, or else just hold off after 2 to 3 days if the patient is not responding to it. What are the other complications, not in the specific case, other complications of recurrent vomiting?
Wernicke's encephalopathy.
Little louder.
Wernicke's encephalopathy, so or
Okay.
severe dehydration state that can lead to pre-renal failure with Bun ratio being elevated, or the patient can have altered sensorium too. Basically, all complications of severe dehydration can precipitate some.
Electrolytes?
Electrolytes, yeah,
Hypokalemia.
hypokalemia, hypomagnesia, hypocalcemia, all this can set in.
Then mechanical complications as well.
In fetal distress, if it is patient is too hypovolemic.
See, hyperemesis is one of the complication in fetals. Vitamin K deficiency.
Deficiency.
Is there anything?
Nothing, sir. Okay.
Thank you, sir.